So today's lesson we're going to be looking at the importance of myth and stories for Islam, and what these myths and stories do for Muslims and their practices and their beliefs and their values. So stories in Islam, so Islamic stories have been inherited from Judaism and Christianity. This is obviously connected to its historical development, and as we know already, Islam was based off of Christianity and Judaism. However, there are some differences within the stories. Even though there is a clear connection, there are some differences. So for example, Islam's creation story is similar in the length in which the world was created. However, it varies in its description of Allah and its positioning and his positioning. As read in the Quran, it was Allah who in 6 days created the heavens and the earth and all that lies between them, and then ascended his throne. So the world and the heavens were created in 6 days, but then the mentioning of the throne is that difference. So another example of the similarities and differences between Islam and Christianity, Judaism in relation to their stories, is the creation of the story of Adam, with the recognition of Adam being the first person as being the same, but the mode in which he was created with some differences. So again, as read in the Quran, he first created the human person from clay and then produced children from that person by means of an ordinary fluid. He molded the person and breathed in his spirit. So again, there's some similarities with some slight differences. So several other stories, or what they are known as parables in the Quran, focus on Islamic life. So to teach Muslims about core beliefs, values, attitudes, and behaviors. So that's kind of their role. These stories are within Islam. So for example, there is a prominent parable that is focused on teaching Muslims to not judge others by their appearance. And the surah reads, "A man was walking along a dusty road. From the opposite direction, he saw a camel approach." And I just want to identify that I have kind of edited and cut this a little bit because it was quite long. So he remarked to the camel he was very odd shape and asked him what was the matter with him. The camel was affronted and replied that he had been made that way by Allah. There was nothing wrong with him or his hump. So almost all of the stories in Islam come from the Quran. Through these stories, Muslims reflect on their lives, are guided on appropriate behaviour, and understand their roles and place within their world. So these stories are quite important for kind of shaping Islamic practices, and also teaching them about some of their values and their beliefs. So the fundamental myth, now we're going to look at some mythology, and the role of mythology is somewhat similar to the stories, but there's also a bit of differences within it. So the fundamental myth of Islam is centered around Muhammad's role in the creation of Islam. So this mythology signifies the creation of Islam, establishes the prominence of Mecca, as well as the significance of Muhammad to the Islamic faith. So this mythology really kind of shapes Muslims' understanding of some of their significant sites, as well as provides meaning and understanding of some of their practices, especially the Hajj, as we'll come to see, as well as creating some of their values around Muhammad and his life, and his kind of prominence within the religion. So Muhammad is believed to have been born into a poor family, to a widow. He grew up in Mecca, and his grandfather was in charge of the Kaaba. This humble upbringing is of high significance to Muslims, as we'll come to see. So the fact that he was born to a poor family, to a widowed mum, will become significant later on as we look at the mythology. So Muslims believe Muhammad's first contact with God was when he was meditating in a cave on nearby Mount Hira. So the angel Gabriel appeared at this time and ordered him to read from a scroll. So despite being illiterate, he was still able to recite the scroll, which turned into the Quran. And it is this mythology that shapes Muslims' belief of the Quran being the direct word of God, as it is believed to have been sent down to Muhammad with no translation or interpretation. So that part of the mythology, the fact that Muhammad was sitting up on a mountain and the angel Gabriel gave him the scrolls with the scripts of the Quran, and then Muhammad just recited that, provides that meaning and understanding that the Quran is the true word of God. After this revelation from God, it is believed that Muhammad journeyed from Mecca to Medina to help to build the profile of Islam in the area and to develop an Islamic community. This was the case as after he kind of received the word from God, he tried to establish Islam in Mecca and it wasn't working. So he traveled to Medina to try and establish it there. This journey is called the Hijra, the migration, and it is in Medina where Muhammad first established Islam as a religion. So again, that part of the mythology also also helps to establish the significance of Medina to Islam and to Muhammad's. So Muslims believe that it is in Medina where Muhammad received the revelation from God to claim Mecca for Allah. So he then travelled back to Mecca in 630 CE and took the city. He then rode 7 times around the Kaaba on a white camel, calling people to prayer, and sacked the idols within it, claiming it for Allah. So, this mythology around Muhammad's life and accomplishments helps to justify Muslims' beliefs and faith in Muhammad's authority as the final great prophet for Islam. And that is a really, really important point, and that's kind of why I've underlined it. It kind of recognised his accomplishments from a humble beginning, and because he was able to achieve all of these things, it really gives him that sense of authority. It is also through this mythology that the final pillar, the Hajj, gets its meaning and purpose from, as Muslims follow Muhammad's journey in establishing Islam in Mecca. So it's, again, quite significant for the last pillar of Islam, and really provides that meaning and understanding. So the thing I kind of want to just summarize this lesson with, and it's quite a short one today, but these myths and stories really do provide meaning and understanding to Muslims' practices, which, as we've kind of looked at ages ago, which we might not remember, it's these meanings and understandings that provide purpose. So Muslims, and not just Muslims, any religion, cannot really practice their faith appropriately if there is no meaning and understanding. And so mythologies and stories really help to create that. So Muslims can know what they're doing and why they're doing it. And that's what kind of these mythologies and stories represent and provide to Muslims.